Daniel 2 and 3. Well, in verse 1, now in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, so the year is 603 BC, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. Now, it's very important in the ancient Near East to listen to one's dreams. And so, as he has this dream, he makes this pronouncement to his astrologers and soothsayers that they need to also tell him what the dream was and then interpret the dream. I think he does this just to get rid, possibly, of some of those that pretended to be astrologers. Well, of course, they complain there is not a man on earth who can both tell the dream and the interpretation, except the gods. Now, the word in Aramaic, chapters 2 through 7 in Daniel are written in Aramaic, which shows that the readership of this portion of Daniel probably was or included both Jews who only knew Aramaic or who had learned Aramaic since their arrival in Babylon, but also the Babylonians. And so I think this book, the book of Daniel, shows a lot of signs, and I'll mention this as we go, signs that the reader was intended to be the polytheistic Babylonian and what he was to learn about Yahweh. But these astrologers claim, well, only the gods can know this kind of thing, and then they make this quote, whose dwelling is not with flesh. In Aramaic, the word for Elohim is Elohim, so we'll see this about 90 times in the book of Daniel. Notice again how culturally this is a term that moves about from culture to culture and language to language rather similarly, which shows this is not a word invented by God. This is a word borrowed from culture for its use in Hebrew and so forth. But these astrologers claim this is the work of an Elohim to be able to tell the king his dream. Well, Daniel hears about the king's dilemma, and he goes to the king, or brought in, and it says that Daniel sought mercy from the God of heaven concerning this secret. I think it's important to see that even Daniel believed that we shouldn't, as humans, ever feel we are owed supernatural information from the heavens. If God will be merciful, Daniel thinks, then he will know what this dream was. Daniel then says to the king, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his, and he changes the times and the seasons. The point being, Daniel tells Nebuchadnezzar, I serve the God who runs the whole show. And again, think of as a Babylonian hearing this story. By the way, the word Yahweh, the name for our God, never occurs in the book of Daniel except in chapter 9, which is a prayer of Daniel, again, probably to his own people. Well, what is the dream? He sees this huge image made, or in this dream, made of gold as a head, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, and legs of iron. Probably increasingly less valuable metals as you go down. And then this huge stone comes out of nowhere, as it were, and smashes the image, and in its place a kingdom rises up from this image. And then Daniel says in verse 36, this is the dream. Now he will tell the interpretation of it. For you, O king, are the King of Kings. So this picture of him being the head, Nebuchadnezzar, and 3 other kingdoms to follow seems to be the point of the dream. And again, this idea of borrowed authority. It comes from Yahweh. Yahweh is the one who is actually giving the king both the dream and also the right to be the head of gold. Well, the king responds by saying to Daniel, truly your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and the revealer of secrets. So Nebuchadnezzar is amazed at Daniel's ability both to tell the dream and its interpretation. What is his reaction? It's fascinating. In chapter 3, verse 1, he decides, Nebuchadnezzar does, instead of repenting and believing in this God, he actually makes an image, puts it on a hill. So it says it's 60 cubits high, which I think means it's on a hill, so that it's 90 feet in the air, this image of himself. And he makes this proclamation that whoever does not bow down to this image when the music plays would be cast into, quote, the fiery furnace. Now, these are still dotting the countryside of Baghdad. These are clay furnaces for building bricks, and you can walk up the side of them, and there's an opening at the top, so you can stand at the top, or you can stand here and see in. And so here come these three men, and we learned about their names in chapter 1, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these men do not worship this image when they hear the music, and of course they are brought before the king. And Nebuchadnezzar, this is 3:15, he says, "Who is the Elohim who will be able to deliver you from my hands?" Now they make this point that if we are not saved by our God when we're thrown into the fiery furnace, then so be it. And again, there is that idea that we don't demand from Yahweh supernatural intervention. No human should think in terms of demanding it. So they make the case that, well, if our God saves us in this fiery furnace, so be it. But if not, O king, know that we would never worship any other God but Yahweh. Well, we know the story then that these three men are thrown in, and the king looks in and he sees a fourth image in the furnace. Now, this is important to catch again to help with our vocabulary of the cosmology of the ancient world. The king, who never had a class in Israeli theology, right? He looks into the fiery furnace. Somehow below here, he's seeing these three men. He expects to see them, of course, dead, but he sees four men, and he says this, "Look, I see four men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the form of the fourth is like a son of the gods." Most versions have it that way, a son of the gods. The term is bar, like a son. Now, Aramaic for son, Hebrew is ben. Now it's Aramaic bar Elohim. So the fourth is like a son of the gods. Okay. Now again, we've heard this term, B'nai Elohim, back in Genesis 6, for example, the sons of the gods. It simply means one who is like a god, or to be understood in terms of a god. So really all he's saying is, I know there are three humans in there, and the fourth is, well, it's not human. The only other option he has is the world above us, which is the world of the Elohim. So that's why he calls it a B'nai, or a bar in this case, a bar Elohim. Someone who is not human, thus someone who is divine. A divine being is in that furnace. Now what's important to catch is that 3 verses later, in 3:28, Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying, and as these three men come out, this fourth one disappears apparently, these three men come out of the furnace, and listen to Nebuchadnezzar. He says this, "Blessed be the God of these men," the Elohim of these men. I don't know if he knows Yahweh by name, but he knows they worship a God that's different from his. "Blessed be the God of these men who sent his malach." Now notice he's able to call this being here, and this is the same in Aramaic as Hebrew, a messenger. He sent his malach. It's translated as angel in our Bibles, unfortunately. "Who sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him." The point being, as we close up, notice that we are calling the same being in the story. Here's a good way to again argue that the Bible, it's easier to believe in gods than it is in angels, because we have just called this being a son of the gods, or a God-fashioned being, and then in the next breath the king calls that a malach, or a messenger. So it's a messenger divine being. We have taken this term and turned it into the word angel, and in so doing, in our tradition, have really lost the concept of a deity. So this deity is a messenger deity. The king knows it. And now let's ask this question as we get ready for our next video. What do we think the king's response would be? Would this king finally become a monotheist and believe in Yahweh? Well, let's listen to our next chapters and find out.